Aloha, this is Dan. From 2016 to 2017, I tried my hand at putting out video essays about film topics on YouTube. The production of it was more than I could handle at the time, so I shut it down after only several episodes. But now that I'm getting my podcast up and running again, I've reworked the audio from that show into podcast episodes, which I will publish by the dates that the YouTube episodes were originally published or intended to be published. This one was originally from January 5th, 2017. New content is on the way as well.
Is it recording?
Yep. Hi, welcome. Okay. I hate this. Hey, welcome back. Alright.
Something about the room.
Welcome back to Breathing Underwater's music time.
How about something about being so excited that we saw this great movie?
I'm getting there. I have a plan. Just wait. Okay. I can't. Because... Hello! Hello!
Hi, babe.
So, as I mentioned in the first episode, I have a twin brother.
Hi.
Say your name.
I'm Dave. We are twins. Jan's got the giggles.
So,
This was a funny movie.
so why are we so giggly and uncomfortable? Because we just watched
The Room.
So Dave's in town for Thanksgiving, and we thought it would be a good time to do a video together. And Dave's had a fascination with The Room for a while now, watching a lot of other reviews about it. He decided that he needed to own his own copy.
It was worth buying.
And that inspired him to want to spread the word, as it were. I don't even know where to start with this masterpiece. Growing up with Mystery Science Theater 3000, which I think is making a comeback. There's been kickstarted or
It's a
something.
remake. The new continuation of it. It's way over its budget. It's coming out this winter.
Oh.
You know that?
Alright. Most of the time when they were reviewing things in Mystery Science Theater, those movies were B or C or D or Z level, just bad.
Manos was not known at the time until they that was obscure.
Manos.
They found it somewhere.
Hands of Fate. The thing about those movies was that a lot of them were just unwatchably bad, and the only thing that made it watchable was the commentary from Joe and the bots and everything.
Joel then Mike.
Joel.
You were out of here. You haven't seen that in so long, have
Joel.
you?
No, I haven't. So Dave and I both grew up watching that, and we thought that we knew bad. You know, The Room is just like a whole nother category.
I truly believe to be inducted into the realm of bad, you need to watch The Room. Whether you like it or not. It's like the quintessential new millennium bad.
Now that we've both seen The Room, we understand what all the hype is about, I think.
Well, anybody can make a bad, low-budget, obscure B-movie.
As Mystery Science Theater has proven over and over again.
Not everybody can make a movie with like medium to low budget. You know, we're talking under 10 million. Where you can potentially make a quirky or lesser known good movie. But to fail so bad when you have a budget is highly entertaining.
The Room has been talked about to death.
Become a cliche too.
Yeah, it's meme central. The reason that we even knew about it was because of all the YouTube reviews that we've seen about it, so we don't want to spend time just dissecting it like that. But we did want to record a short video just about our reactions to it, because everybody I think does have a unique subjective reaction to
The
it.
first time through it had me like wailing.
Mine was more sort of a shouting, squealing, guttural reaction.
A sense of just shock on your face.
And yeah, and just that like that look, or the that look happened a lot. Yeah. Let's go through a couple of the things that we reacted to most intensely. What stood out to me with your reaction was the face.
The guy with the like the bleached hair,
Mike, I think.
The frat guy, bro face guy, and just he was like, he had this like almost cross-eyed like face, and his voice sounds like a 12-year-old in an adult's body. I hate him.
Johnny, I got a little bit of a tragedy on my hands. Yeah.
I really had a visceral reaction to that guy.
I hate him.
It really made
Yeah.
you upset.
Yeah.
See, personally, I like Mike. I think his name is Mike, because he was one of the only actors in the movie that I felt was actually trying to act. He was felt like he was actually making an effort, even though the effort did work.
He seemed like someone they just found off the street. That the mother's the only one that seemed like was trying to act with horrendous lines.
Okay, let's go to the couch. And we will sit down. Now, what's happening with you?
Horrendous direction.
But at least you forget the guy with the gun.
Right.
Yeah.
It's my money! Yeah.
That guy he brought his A game. The problem with that guy was that he way overacted. I mean, everybody else seemed like they were in a coma. So his overacting only made everybody else's underacting or non-acting that much more nonsensical and like frightening almost.
Yeah. This doesn't fit the balance between actors trying, actors not. Lines that will work, but there's probably 2 lines that work in the whole movie.
Another thing that you had a big reaction to was the music.
It's like MIDI music or something they did on a keyboard that's...
Well, Muzak. I mean, it was
like
very
Muzak.
Muzak-y.
I love that song where it's like, you are my rose, you are my rose, you are my
You are my rose, you are my rose, you are my rose. You are my rose.
And it advertised on...
Oh, the original motion picture soundtrack.
Yeah, there's an original motion picture soundtrack to it apparently. I gotta look that up on Amazon. It's as if they got these like smooth R&B songs from like a bargain bin for 99 cents and said these are the least worst 3 or 4 we can find.
Nobody's gonna hit us up for any royalties for this. Nobody's gonna know it exists.
Yeah.
The thing about The Room that struck me just in every single frame was context or the lack thereof.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that happened, everything that was said, the music cues, the editing, even the lighting, like everything had no context. Things were just kind of there. But then just a minute ago we were watching their little behind the scenes featurette where somebody was just kind of walking around with the camera.
You couldn't believe that they had a full camera crew and set.
As you're watching the movie, I mean, I've been involved in a lot of student productions, so I was just kind of assuming that, there was maybe a sound person, possibly a field sound recorder, maybe a script person, and Tommy sort of directing and acting, and the camera person. But I mean, they had a whole crew. You could see there were costume designers, there were makeup artists, there were people on script, there were continuity people, there were gaffers, and there were best boys. I mean, there was the whole gamut. And it's amazing to me that, like a lot of movies, you can say this, that what happened get by all of the people. Like this is said about the prequels a lot, the Star Wars prequels. Yeah. How did this acting get by these hundreds of people, the eyes that it went past as... But in this particular case, the fact that it failed on every single level and that there were actually people that were hired to do things on all those levels, I feel really bad for those people because you could tell that there were people working. They were trying.
They got paid, but if you look into a lot of the reviews online and different sites, people say like, I worked on this movie and we all know what was happening, but we just couldn't question Tommy. That's where it was going. It might be the whole effect of a eccentric director such as Lucas, who no one can say no to.
You can't say no.
The money's coming from them. The money came from Tommy Wiseau, and so
if you're getting paid and you're getting paid for a train wreck, you make the best train wreck you can.
It's one of the best train wrecks ever made. So Tommy's a genius of bad.
That was one of my reactions to it too. This was made by either complete incompetence or a stroke of genius.
Genius of bad. I mean, many of the low budget grindhouse bad movies have many aspects that are just like offensive, just to like have an edge, or they'll do things that just make you just hate it. In this movie, you don't hate Tommy Wiseau, you're just like, wow, he's just insanely himself. It's like, thank you for such a movie. I really appreciate that your epic crazy made this. If it actually worked, it would have been just like one of those B-movie dramas that would have been forgotten through time. Oh, this happened once, and just some obscure thing you see on IMDb.
Yeah, if one thing worked about it, and you can say that a lot about films that aren't good, that at least, like the cinematography was good, or the effects were good, or the music was good, or something, the sound design. But this, nothing worked, and nothing had any purpose or context, it seemed, other than, potentially locked away in Tommy Wiseau. Tommy W's head. So something that I had the most intense reactions to were the repetition of various lines throughout the movie that, again, had no context at all. So for instance, it was constantly said by more than one character, don't worry about it, it's gonna be okay.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about that.
Don't worry.
Danny, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Look, don't worry about it. Everything will be fine.
They try to interject some kind of drama in a scene, and then somebody would just say, no, it's okay, don't worry about it.
Well, I mean, obviously there's several things repeated, like the throwing around the football.
He doesn't.
Come on, come on, come on. Yeah,
The two scenes where a character like fell for no reason and was like hurt.
Okay? Are you alright? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Go deep.
One of the best parts, how scenes would get end with like, oh, we're done here, rah, ha, ha, and we walk away and out the door and like, scene over.
Let's go home.
It's like skits almost. It's like,
Yeah, I had the same thought that when you're talking about story problems and character problems, most of the time that does, start with the script, with the original blueprint for the movie. And in this case, obviously it was written by Tommy Wiseau.
Tommy W.
Tommy W. It seems to me that he had literally no conception of what a character is, what a story is, what a plot is, and what a scene is. What happened in a scene where people were going about their business and then there would be something that would, kind of flip the scene or put in some kind of dramatic moment or tension that would change the course of the scene. That would happen and it would steer back to where it was going and then just end. I feel so bad for the editor, or not, because maybe the editor had a lot of fun. But yeah, there was no plot. There were all these seeds of possible plot lines. There was no dramatic tension or rising action about any of them.
These
Yeah, it was like you said, you'd have a scene where people were talking about their feelings or they were talking about something that they wanted from another person or something they wanted to do, and then the next scene where they were like throwing a football and talking about something completely different. And then things would also happen off screen that were important.
and the chip chip.
That was another one that I didn't even know how to react to that.
Chip 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 chip.
Who are you calling a chicken?
The chickens don't go chip chip chip. Yeah, they would do that to egg each other on it. Oh, chicken, chip, 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 and they all, I get it that, Tommy, coming from a different background possibly than the other characters, maybe that's how he would say it where he's from. But everybody else, they were obviously, like Westerners, and they would just follow his lead on saying like chip, 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 so that didn't make any sense.
And what about my assessment that Johnny seems more like a villain on like a bad Steven Seagal movie from the 80s? Like when he put his arm around like the 90s haircut kid.
Denny. His name was Denny, like Denny's.
Danny.
I was wondering if he was just pronouncing Danny
okay.
wrong, but in the behind the scenes they showed a picture of the script and it said Danny, like the restaurant Denny's.
Well, like when he put his arm around him and like, because he was talking about how he like loves Lisa.
And we're your friends. We're gonna help you.
Yeah, I was almost scared for him. I was like, I feel like he was gonna do like the evil supervillain things, like I'm gonna like throw him off the roof. How dare you love my wife.
Speaking of throwing off the roof.
What? What are you, nuts? God!
That was one of my favorite moments.
In the sequel to The Room, there's gonna be a bad 80s martial arts scene with Seagal. Probably Seagal and Van Damme.
That could have saved this movie. It was just a great all-out fight scene. Tommy like rips his shirt off.
And Van Damme's like...
Okay, hold on a second. So that another line that I loved and that you kept pointing out was that he would say, "But he's my best friend."
Johnny's my best friend.
But
Right.
Johnny's my best friend.
But he's my best friend. Like
No.
they would just kind of say things arbitrarily.
It's all exposition. They don't show you this. They don't show you that Lisa can't hold a job and that she's a sociopath. They don't show you that Johnny's a nice guy except he gives her flowers.
But you hear about it
They
constantly.
talk about it. Yeah.
He's a wonderful man, and he loves you very much.
Good 70-80% of the lines are just exposition about another character. If it wasn't so funny, it'd be painstakingly boring.
It is boring, but that's counteracted by how much of a failure it is. So it's well known that there's a rumor it was supposed to have ended with Tommy becoming a vampire. I'm sorry, Johnny becoming a vampire and flying off in a flying vampire car, I
Wasn't
believe.
he a villain in one of the Blade or Underworld movies?
I felt like if that happened, they flew off in a vampire car, the movie would have actually all made sense.
The vampire car.
Oh gosh, I wish I could see some concept art for that.
I mean, if he turned into a bat...
You drive me crazy!
Well, it seemed like a 90s soap opera, or bad made-for-television movie. It had the tone, and everybody's haircut and clothing just seemed 90s.
As we were watching those aspects, I was wondering if Tommy Wiseau made a lot of the costume design and set design choices, because you can tell just by the way that he dressed that he was stuck in another time with his hair and the baggy clothes that...
He did have those zipper pants to shorts things, which were big in the earlier 2000s. I had a pair.
But I mean, his stylings were so
well, none
unique.
of it fit.
But then for everybody else to look like they were out of some early 90s soap opera or Lifetime drama or something like that.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if Tommy really was the one making all the decisions. The lack of consistency and continuity, there was consistency in the bizarreness, in the choices that were made, or the non-choices that were made. There was a consistent inconsistency.
It was consistently bizarre.
I feel like there's so much to like unpeel and unravel from this experience. It's not just a movie. I mean, it's a whole...
I have a hard time figuring out which mix of personality disorders Tommy Wiseau has, which is not a fault in him. Making a awesomely bad movie doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah, we're very appreciative of the art that he created.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's a genius of bad. Greg Sestero, is that how you say his name? Seen him in interviews, he seems like he's a dedicated actor. His performance is so wooden in this movie for some reason.
Well, everybody's was.
The lines.
But you see that, think about the prequels, the Star Wars prequels. I think as an actor, a director is imperative, because when actors are sort of subjectively interpreting a script and their character motivations and their lines and everything, if they don't have somebody that is a little bit more in charge, of that story and those characters in the script, like somebody that they can ask questions, they're more focused just on their part, a lot of times, and I think that they need to have a bigger picture person to talk to, and somebody that also knows how to bring out certain performances.
We have family in the classical world, and we ask, why do you need a conductor? The music's right in front of them. No, you need them to bring out the form and the feel, and that there's a non-verbal communication between them and the whole orchestra. So it's similar to a director.
I love that analogy.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah. When you see films that have potential, the Star Wars prequel is a great example, and I would argue even the Hobbit movies too. There was some kind of disconnect between the director and the actors, and if you watch behind the scenes of the prequels, you see George Lucas just sitting in a chair drinking coffee behind monitors, watching everything, and he was just kind of calling out like, all right, action.
I need sand.
The actors are trying, but they're not given anything like context and things to work with that they can really use in a scene, to make it effective and to make their acting seem authentic. They're going with whatever they feel is right in the moment, I'm assuming, and this is a perfect example in the room where...
Can a good actor make do if the director's kind of nonchalant, or like a good actor, I get this character, and even though the director's whatever, we will play off each other. I guess that happens. I guess just didn't happen in the room.
When you look at the Star Wars prequels, you have some of the finest actors working. You have like Samuel L. Jackson, and Liam Neeson, and you have Ewan McGregor. I think Natalie Portman's a good actor. Some people don't agree, but I mean, she has given good performances in other films. Yeah. There is a relationship with the director that helps the actors bring out the performance that makes the scene and their characters believable and effective. To answer your question, though, I think that in the case of The Room, I think it's obvious that Tommy Wiseau gave them just bad direction, not just in terms of the technical aspects like the cinematography and things like that, which we'll get right to in just a second, but I think it's possible that he wasn't an uninvolved director, that more so it seems, and if you look at the clues like we were talking about, the choices that were made aesthetically, it seems like he was very involved.
Some people said he wasn't as involved because he was in so many scenes, and there was literally no direction.
So that could explain it too.
Apparently every scene he was in, there was like literally no direction. The camera people were just making do, trying to make something work.
Okay, well that makes perfect sense. But on the other hand, imagine you're in a scene and you're acting opposite the director, right? He's trying to focus on his lines and remember his lines and think about his character. You're trying to say something like, no, it's okay, don't worry about it, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Your director, who's also acting opposite you, says, no, you really have to bring it out. You want to say it like you mean it. Just gives us some kind of direction. So the actor's like,
just
totally befuddled, like, okay, I thought I gave a good performance there, but okay, that wasn't it, so I'll try something totally different. And they're like, no, it's okay, don't worry about it. It just
go in one direction too much.
When you're given direction that like makes no sense, but you're trying to like appease the director, I think that kind of stuff happens in these cases. But the other thing that I reacted to viscerally was the poor direction in the aesthetic realm of things, especially the shot setup and the editing between shots.
Spoons. How hard is it to take a picture with a Polaroid of the main male and female protagonist and put them in a picture frame? Like, weird together. No, spoons. That came with a picture frame. That's why they throw spoons at it.
Anyway.
Spoon! Like the
Spoon!
I got the feeling, and then this was confirmed when we watched the behind the scenes segments, that the sets that they built and the spaces they were shooting in were often too small to fit all the actors and the camera in a position that they could fit all the actors in a shot.
Yeah.
So when they try to do like wide shots, a lot of times somebody would just be missing from, but they were there, they were just like slightly off screen. Or there was a scene where Lisa's over and like her face is cut off like this, and she's talking over here, and then they cut over to the other kid, and he's, you know, centered in the frame, and they cut back to her, and her face is like half cut off. And I think that happened because they couldn't fit everybody in the shot. It wasn't big enough. In the apartment they had this too. They had these really weird like bird's eye view shots.
Yeah.
It was really awkward, and they did these high angles a lot, where when Tommy would walk in and plop down on the couch, and he's like in this weird wide shot.
Yeah.
It was very awkward, and I think that was just, they only had a few places they could fit the camera. The cameras, because apparently they filmed this in digital.
What about that?
And film at the same time.
Lisa's like yelling at Denny or whatever, and she's like hunched over, and then the next scene you see him to the opposite angle. She's up.
I'm more forgiving with that kind of stuff. I mean, having made, you know, student films, continuity, when you're in the moment and you're shooting something, you're assuming it's going to cut back and forth in post, and you realize that like somebody was like standing slightly in a different angle than they were, or they were at like a different level. You go with it. I see this all the time in big, huge budget movies where people, you know, a continuity is not exact in between two shots, but it happens.
What about the whole 180 rule that's supposed to happen in this? Did you catch that? I did.
You know, I honestly, I was so floored by how much, not just bad, but like bizarre the dialogue was. At every turn, every line that came out of every character's mouth almost made no sense, especially in regard in what the last person just said. Yeah. That was affecting me and distracting me so much. I wasn't paying as much attention to the editing as I wanted to, but I assumed there were at 180 continuity problems, but I must have missed them.
Well, as usual, this is unprofessional, but there was one more thing that I definitely reacted to viscerally throughout the whole movie, which was what seemed like really, really poorly done overdubs of all the lines.
If a lot of people love each other, the world would be a better place to live.
I could be wrong. It could just be a sync issue or acting issues or something else, but from what it seemed like to me, they went back and overdubbed all the lines of dialogue in post.
I could not go on without you, Lisa.
Which is obviously really common in movies because you don't want to get all the set sounds. You want to have more control over the ambient sound and the voices to be clear and equal. So first of all, if the lines were overdubbed, it makes me wonder, first of all, how bad the delivery was the first time on set. And it makes me curious if the overdubs were somehow better. Because if the overdubs were better, then the lines on set must have just been horrendous. If things weren't dubbed, if this is truly the lines that were delivered on set, it just makes their delivery all that much more bizarre.
The final thing that really affected me watching this was we were introduced to Johnny's character right away, and then he proceeds to like not be in the movie for like 10 minutes. There were stretches of the movie where it would be focused on one set of people, and then you wouldn't see other. And then I forgot that Danny was even in the movie. He wasn't in for like the last 20 minutes or so.
It felt like a collection of bad skits almost. Like they're more like skits than scenes.
Well, yeah, you can't call them scenes because they had no discernible like beginning, middle, end, or purpose.
Yeah. Virtually none of them.
They just happened. Any other things you want to talk about?
It's like an elongated bad student film, but with professional cameras, except that they kept switching the...
between digital and film. Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was...
It happened a few times. Like one shot would be that, then the shot to the other character would be film, or so on and so forth.
And they kind of neglected to do any color correction and try to match it or anything. It was like one was super saturated and vibrant, you know, with the digital, and then another one was much more like kind of grainy and desaturated. There were several shots that were just straight up out of focus. How do you spend $6 million on a movie in your final cut you have out of focus shots? Just leave the shot out. Just don't put it in. Like, why was it? There was nothing in this movie that felt necessary at all. So I want to hear the conversation on the editing room where Tommy's like, no, that shot is going to stay.
Yeah.
You know, like, no, that's it. The movie is nothing without that shot.
One thing I would love for somebody to do would be awesome, would be to re-edit a trailer for the movies to make it look either like another genre or make it look like a really good movie and say something like, nominated for 7 Academy Awards. If someone could like re-edit it,
I don't think it's possible. You'd have to do like montage with no dialogue, because if anybody says even one word, it's gonna ruin it.
I bet there's people out there who are that good at film editing who can do that. If they can make The Shining a uplifting movie or Mary Poppins a horror movie, that's not hard to do. But make because it was creepy actually.
So that's on you, internet. Go make The Room look like a masterpiece. Those are our initial guttural reactions to The Room. Thank you, Dave, for sitting down with me and doing this. We'll try to get together and do more videos together, most often not in the same space, but we'll work it out, whether it's on Skype or...
Tulu.
That's a perfect way to end it.
We don't have a tagline. We don't have a...
I got nothing.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
Be sure to visit breathingunderwater.us. Follow me on Instagram at breathingunderwater1 and drop me a line at breathingunderwater1@gmail.com. Please note that I do not claim any ownership of any media presented in this podcast, which is only used for promotional purposes unless otherwise noted. And all views and opinions are those of the person expressing them and do not represent any other entities discussed in this podcast.